Today, we want to talk about real estate contracts that are primarily used in Florida. There are two different types, primarily standard and as is. This is Meg. She's a licensed Florida attorney, although she's not here to give legal advice.
Yes, of course.
Of course not. I'm a double major, real estate and finance. Meg and I have been working together in Pinellas County, St. Petersburg, Tampa Bay area for a little while now. Seen quite a few things going on, so we figured it's time for us to record some videos to educate the general public about the real estate contracts. And also, we've noticed there are a lot of agents out there, many, who have never even read the contract, and they don't know which one to use or what's in it. And I think that this may be helpful for those who just did not have an opportunity to get an education. So we're here for help.
We were all new at one point in the industry, so we certainly recognize that there is a learning curve with the contracts. And, to get started, we really wanted to talk a little bit about why to use which contract. So in the state of Florida, the Florida Association of Realtors and the Florida Bar came together and approved two different contracts. Those are the two contracts that are primarily used here. And they are the as-is contract and the standard contract. So,
do you have a favorite one?
I think my favorite is the as-is, but honestly, I haven't used the standard contract as much as I would have liked to at this point, because here in Tampa Bay, the predominantly used contract is the as-is contract. So 9 out of 10 transactions have used the as-is contract.
Although on our first deal, our very first seller, we get a standard contract with an as-is rider. Remember that one?
Yeah. We'll
get to that. That's going to be probably the last episode we'll record to explain that complicated thing. But let's talk about just high level stuff, right? So this as-is contract, if you were sitting down and you're advising your buyer who lives here in Pinellas County and they're shopping around, how would that conversation go?
Well, I would start by sitting them down and showing them both contracts. So I've gotten in the habit of making my clients go through a little mini contract class so that they actually know what is in the contracts. We are so used to signing away our life and limb without reading things. And this is a home. It's a purchase. It's a big deal. It's maybe the biggest purchase of someone's life. And so we make sure that they're well versed in the two contracts. And then I just explain the differences. One of the important questions that I think is first on the list is how willing are they to do negotiations after we get under contract? Because realistically, between the as-is contract and the standard contract, one of the biggest differences is when you're going to negotiate repairs and expenses that the seller is ultimately going to incur.
Yeah, and that negotiation is also, well, I guess if somebody's traveling and they're coming from out of state, they're like looking to relocate here and buy something in St. Pete, you'd have the same consultation. And most likely in that conversation, the buyer would discover that a standard contract may be more appropriate to lock in the deal, to have some assurance that the repairs are going to be done the way that they've negotiated them. So kind of let's backtrack a little bit to this main difference here between the as-is and the standard. So
the biggest difference is an as-is contract is supposedly to be for an as-is purchase. That's it. Whatever the condition of the house is, you're buying it in that condition. Of course, it's morphed drastically into an entirely different contract, which is really a contract that gets negotiated within the first 15 days or so. So it allows for 10 to 15 day inspection. You can limit that to 7. You can extend that to 25, but the average we see is about 10 to 15 days for the buyer to go in, inspect the property, see what's wrong with it, see what things they might want repaired, for the seller to take on that expense. And then at that point, they're going to work that out amongst themselves. And if not, then the buyer has the option to walk away. Yeah. So it's great for investors. It's always been an investor's choice because they want to walk into something, get in there, make sure they like it, make sure it fits their criteria. And if it doesn't, they want the option to just walk away. Standard contract locks you in a little bit more.
Gosh. And so what happens if, let's say, using a standard contract, I find a property that I love, we go ahead and, decide to draft a standard contract. And I understand that there's language there where we can pre-agree to the limits of repaired items, right? So we can say, hey, we like this, but after the inspection, here is a budget of $3,000. If there's $3,000 worth of work, the seller has to do it, right? And same thing, they have to do any kind of wood destroying organisms and also any kind of closeout of the permits. But what if we agree on $5,000 worth of repairs. And then all of a sudden we do the inspection and there is $25,000 worth of repairs, right? It needs plumbing. It needs new electrical stuff because it had aluminum wiring and whatever, so forth and so on. The seller can just go ahead and actually do all of those repairs and the buyer still has to buy the house.
Yeah. You're much more locked in with the standard contract because you've pre-negotiated what's going to happen. So in that example, you've got $25,000 worth of repairs that you might as well.
I don't feel comfortable with that. If a house needs $25,000 worth of repairs, I would at least want to be able to oversee them and hire my own contractors and oversee the work. But here I have to rely on the seller to do everything properly.
Right. So the seller's going to have the responsibility up to what you agreed to, which is $5,000. Beyond that, they don't have any requirement to make a single dollar more in repairs. So if the seller wants to spend the extra money and make the additional repairs, they can do that. If not, it kind of gets kicked back to the buyer and they say, well, which of these repairs up to $5,000 do you want? And the seller provides quotes on that work, and an agreement is made as to which repairs will be done. But, you can envision why a buyer in that instance doesn't probably want to buy that home. It's the seller's only going to do the $5,000 that they're required to do, and you should be planning on that. Then your buyer is stuck. There's no way for them to get out. They're going to, unless that the repair items are something that kicks their financing out, then there's really no remedy. And again, the seller could say, I'll do $10,000 worth of it. And then they choose to repair some things, but you're still, looking at $15,000 worth of things, that need to get done.
Yeah.
So, we see that because of those reasons, the flexibility of the as-is contract is why a lot of parties have switched to using that. But, it really depends on the appetite for negotiation because some negotiations are much easier than others when you go through the inspection period and you come back with your requests for the seller. The seller can say yes, the seller can say no. You can agree to a list of things.
And the whole time you're riding this emotional roller coaster, right? Trying to figure things out. And the way I look at it, the as-is contract essentially, if it's a standard, it's an as-is contract, which conventional financing or FHA finance type of thing, where you essentially have 3 phases of negotiations, right? You got to negotiate the purchase price, lock in the contract. Then you have the inspection. Then you got to negotiate that. And then you have the appraisal, and then the appraisal may also come in and adjust the negotiation process. So quite a few moving parts. So that's why we decided to create this, a contract course to really break it down, kind of start off on a high level of describing the difference between the two, but then go paragraph by paragraph to learn all of the content. And really, if you're an agent, we highly encourage you to actually dive in, spend the time to learn about the contract, because there are times when you're working on things and if a client's asking you a question about a particular paragraph or the repercussions of checking off a box, you want to know, right?
Yeah. A lot of times I think we tend to envision nothing going wrong. But the reality is on a lot of deals that we've had to date, things have gone wrong. We've had to go back to the contract and look at the precise language, send emails back and forth about someone's interpretation of what it says. So these are weapons. They're in your arsenal as agents as you move along. It's not just getting the contract and everyone sign it, but then you'll find that you're using that contract to make sure that you get to the closing table. So yeah, we'll take it kind of paragraph by paragraph going forward in each of the following episodes. If you've got any questions or you want us to go into any more detail, we're going to try and keep those videos fairly short and sweet. So, you get adequate information, but we're not boring you.
I mean, we'll have some anecdotes, right? We'll talk about some of the deals that we worked on and the pitfalls of checking off a box or not checking off a box, so you can get a little bit of an understanding of how to do things. But also, for the general public that has not worked with an agent, I think it's important for you to understand that when a sales associate or realtor gets their license and activates it with a broker, the exam that they pass at the state level does not teach, I don't think it teaches anything about the contract. It's like just brushes over it. I mean, nobody sits there and asking you to read the contract and answer questions about it, right? Like Meg understands the contract because she is a law student and a licensed attorney. For me to get my real estate degree, I did have to go through a couple of years of real estate education, and we had professional professors who were also professionals in the industry talking about what's going on. So just basically kind of maybe caution you to really maybe, again, if you're general public, ask the agent some contract specific questions to see if they've ever read it.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll be one of the agents watching this video, so you'll be able to answer it.
Absolutely. Well, we look forward to sharing some more information with you, and thanks for tuning in.